The Sony a6000 is no more. Sony have made the decision to discontinue this camera. That's a real shame because it's a great little camera. But having a great camera is only half the battle. If you want to get the most out of your photography, you're going to need to team it up with a great lens. In this video, I'm going to make the case why I think this lens right here is a great combo with the Sony a6000 or any of the other cameras in the Sony APS-C line. Oi, what's happening? My name's Chris, aka Snackophagus. I'm a photographer and filmmaker, and I've been shooting with the Sony a6000 since 2015. That's 1 year after the camera came out. Here's an example of the type of pictures that I've been taking with that camera, and all these pictures have one thing in common, that they were taken with my absolute favorite lens for this line of camera. That's the Sony 10 to 18mm f4. But why do I think this is such a great lens? Well, that's a good question. I'm glad I asked it. Let me explain. Size and weight. On the right here, we have the Sony 10 to 18mm f4, and on the left, we have the Tokina 11 to 16. Can you spot a difference? The Sony is about half the size, and it is definitely less than half the weight. That makes it a great lens to team up with your Sony a6000 or 6100, 6300, 6400, 6500, and any other 60 something other that Sony decide to bring out. Now, we were told with mirrorless cameras that everything was going to get smaller and lighter, and to some extent the camera bodies did. The a6000 line is a very small camera, that's why I like it. But the lenses for mirrorless cameras have seemed to stay the same size as in the DSLR world, or in fact got even bigger as faster glasses come along. This, however, is a nice little snub nose lens. You can, in fact, if with the camera attached to this lens, actually fit it in a coat pocket. Well, maybe not any coat pocket, but a winter coat pocket. And as soon as I'm here in the UK, I wear my winter coat probably about 11 months of the year. So you can get away with it, putting it in a coat pocket, but if not, you can definitely fit this in a nice little camera bag or even just your work bag or whatever. And as everybody says, the best camera is the one that you have with you. You're more likely to have a small light camera with a small light lens with you than you are to have a great big massive bazooka of a camera with you. That makes it, for me, a winner. Number 2, focal length. So this is a wide angle lens. It's a 10 to 18. In fact, it's a super wide angle lens at 10 to 18. That's the equivalent of 15 to 27 to 30mm on a full frame lens. That's a really wide angle lens. I like wide angle lenses. They're my favorite type of lenses to shoot with. Most of my photography is taken with a wide angle lens. It means you can get a great perspective on the world. You're going to see the world in a different way. You're going to be able to get more interesting shots, shots that allow you to stand out compared to the rest. And this lens will definitely let you do that. Having a wide angle lens is a must for landscape photography. It's probably the go-to lens with most landscape photographers. But this lens is also great for street environments or urban environments where you've got buildings right on top of you. You want to try and get everything in the frame. Having a wide angle lens allows you to do that. You don't have to back up for miles. Any sort of tourist spot or anything like that, you'll be able to fit it into your image. That gives you a good advantage over everybody else there who's going to struggle to get the shots that they want. Now, you do get a little bit of distortion like any wide angle lens. Sometimes buildings and things can look like they're going to start tipping over backwards, but I kind of think that's part of the charm of a wide angle lens. I don't think that people really notice it as much as us photographers might notice it. And of course, you can correct this in Lightroom or take it into Photoshop and make adjustments to this to really get rid of that problem altogether. You can create really great depth in an image with a wide angle lens. You can have things in the foreground appear much bigger than they normally would be. This leads your eye into the picture and creates an unusual or different point of view to normal standard lenses. I think wide angle lenses give a great impact. People are always impressed when they see a wide angle shot done well. It's something that we don't see every day. It's something that they can't recreate with their consumer cameras or even their phones, even though they do now have these wide angle options. Having a super wide angle lens just gives a complete different look to what people are used to seeing. Number 3, image stabilization, or optical steady shot if Sony have decided to call it. It's the same thing, we know what they mean. It means that if your hands are a little bit jittery, if you've not had a drink for a day or two, and you're starting to get the shakes, this lens will do the best it can to get rid of the micro jitters. That can be really useful in a number of situations, but particularly in low light situations. This lens is an f4, so it's not as fast as, say, a 2.8. You probably understand that already. So having image stabilization built into the lens gives you the ability to have a slower shutter, letting more light into the camera and giving you a better chance of getting a blur-free image, and giving you a better chance of getting a sharper image too. The same thing really, isn't it? Blur-free, sharper. One's one end of the spectrum, one's the other. They come together in the middle and meet to get a nice, crisp, fancy photo. When I'm out and I'm shooting, I really like to go for unusual angles, get down low, get up high, put my camera up over a wall or get it down low. And sometimes you can get a bit shaky or not as steady on your feet when you're going for these type of shots. So having image stabilization just helps out with that so much more than not having image stabilization. The combination of image stabilization and this wide focal length mean that this would probably be an absolutely great vlogging lens. If you've got something like the Sony 6400 that's got the flip up screen and it's also got the microphone input socket, then this is a great combo to go with it. I'm sure you can get great vlogging shots out of it. I've not used it for vlogging, but it's the dream, isn't it? We all want to be a vlogger these days, whizzing down the street on our one wheels with our nice Sony 6400 and a nice 10 to 18 millimeter wide angle lens on one of those Gorilla Pods with our Canadian flag draped around us, chatting away about our latest Twitch stream and how many Jake Pauls we've collected this week. So just a few other things that didn't really justify having their own category. The lens has a 7-bladed aperture, although they are rounded rather than the straight blades. This supposedly allows you to have a smoother, rounder bokeh. That's the outer focus area in the background of the image. I'm not sure how much of a difference it actually makes, but Sony say it does, so I'll choose to believe them. Now, this is a wide-angle lens. It's much harder to get out of focus backgrounds. Normally, everything is in focus with a wide-angle lens, but it is possible, so you can do it, particularly as this lens has a minimum focusing distance of 0.8 feet, so less than a foot. It's about something like half a meter, which doesn't make it a macro lens, but it does mean that you'll have things closer to the camera in focus more often, which is a useful thing that will allow you maybe to get that out of focus background a little bit easier. Number 5, bonus. If you're thinking at some point in the future upgrading from your Sony APS-C line of cameras to the full frame line of cameras, then this lens comes with a nice little bonus. This lens can be used on a full frame body. Now you're probably thinking, hey, all APS-C Sony lenses can be used on the full frame body. The camera will just crop in and use it as if it's an APS-C camera. The reason it does this is to avoid a nasty vignette, you know, that sort of effect where you look like you're looking through a telescope. All the edges are darkened out. Well, that doesn't happen with this lens. If you leave it on a full frame setting and you zoom in to the 18mm lens, then this lens has no vignetting on a full frame sensor, whereas all your other glass is going to be useless, or not useless, but less useful on a full frame camera. This lens can actually still be used on a full frame camera and as a wide angle lens, in fact, and get you some nice shots, which I think is a nice little bonus. Downsides. As we know, every silver lining has a cloud with it. And with this lens, unfortunately, it's got to be the price. In fact, this lens is more expensive than the Sony a6000, and it's more expensive than the Sony a6100, which is the successor to the a6000. In fact, this lens is £600 to £700 in the UK and nearly $900 in the US, which makes it a pricey lens for the APS-C line of cameras. The best way of looking at this is that lenses are an investment, and quite often, in fact nearly all the time, lenses on full frame cameras cost an awful lot more than the actual camera body. The lens is an investment. It's going to last you for several years. In fact, if you think about a lens lasting you for 6 years, as long as you don't drop it or something like that, then this lens works out at about £100 a year. And these lenses do hold their value. In fact, I didn't buy mine new because it's so expensive. I picked mine up used, but it was still about £450, which, if you think about it, if you buy a lens and it still holds that value, it's going to be an awful lot better than your camera, which is going to lose value year after year after year as new technology comes out. Lenses, they don't age as bad as the camera bodies, so it's a better investment to spend your money on great glass than it is to spend it on high-end camera bodies and poor glass, which are going to actually be out of fashion and out of use much quicker. Thanks for getting this far in the video. If you enjoyed it, then here's another video that YouTube thinks you might be interested in. So it's their fault if you don't like it. Don't blame me. And if you're not interested in it, then I'll bid you good day.